I know that art, like making art, is a way for me to process a situation, and also, can be a form of therapy.
From the Center for Creativity at the University of Pittsburgh, this is Processing, a podcast that questions, explodes, subverts, and in some cases confirms what you think you already know about creativity and the Pitt community. I'm your host, Shannon Fink. This season on Processing, we're exploring creativity in the context of massive social change. Pandemic, protest, political upheaval. Can making things be a way to work through questions and fears raised by these events? And if so, how? On a practical level, what does engaging with creativity look like in a landscape of masks and pods? The social distance imposed by coronavirus means that performing artists have had to reimagine their work. For dancer and choreographer Oronde Sharif, COVID-19 restrictions were a fundamental challenge. But as he discovered, they also allowed more room for communication. And they encouraged him to think about how limitations could create new opportunities.
So I think when I think about traditional African dance, you have the dancers and you have the drummers and the musicians. And there's this synergy that exists. So even when we have class, I could always play like for our generation, I could play CDs. Or for younger generations, I could play MP3s. But there's a difference between playing that and having that synergy with the people and synergy with the music. And then the idea of just space. Space to move your arms, space to jump, space to navigate air and land at the same time, as well as, picking your heart rate up and stretching and sweating. I could do that, but it's so different when you don't have that space and those people and the right space and the right people.
Virtual tools like Zoom couldn't replace the collaboration of live musicians and dancers in the same space, but they did offer one advantage.
So, I know I have plenty of friends and know plenty of people who are doing Zoom classes, video classes. I have friends who tell me, oh, you should do that in Pittsburgh. In terms of communicating, Zoom is awesome. So that it allows for me communication to happen a lot easier, and it allows for space for conversation. Then the issue just comes with execution. Where you think of like a lot of dancers performing to maybe we just have one or two dancers performing to even, okay, well, what if we videotape segments of this and this and this? So those juices are rolling in terms of how to do the staging and what that picture looks like. My process wholly changed to a whole different almost genre, if that makes sense. So the dancing is there, but with limitations, that changes a whole lot. So then artistically, it's like, okay, well, what else can we do? Actually, I'm thinking more of what other creative things that I can do outside of performing. So, a friend of mine, we were talking about maybe getting grant money to do a documentary on the process of doing the show, or the history of Black nativity in Pittsburgh, and get in touch with people like that. At one point I was even thinking about doing it nationally. How does that look?
We've all had to improvise on our plans this year, to pivot, tilt, shuffle, try to stay in motion, like Oronde and his dancers reacting to a new remote rehearsal space. If creativity thrives on limitations, then maybe there are new opportunities waiting to be discovered. Visual artist Ivette Spradlin was thinking about social distance. In her case, it led her to a historical parallel, and a new project, one that could create not just photographs, but sparks of human connection.
It's been like a default of mine for a long time that when I don't know what to do, I take portraits. And it's just it's like a photographic default for me. Like it's always a way for me to connect and kind of just feel that connection to other human beings. And it's interesting a lot. I mean, I feel like some works are really planned and thought out, and then others are just kind of much more casual and maybe something that I just need at that moment. And this was definitely one where I had thought I was just trying to think of something I could do. And since my default is portraits, I was like, you know what, like maybe when we walk in my neighborhood, I live in Troy Hill, and it's really packed in, like one of those, old working class Pittsburgh neighborhoods where the houses are like right on top of each other. So there's a lot of people. And so I thought like, oh, maybe I could walk around and maybe people can step out and I can stay across the street. And it kind of relates to like some architecture photographs that I'd been taking on my walks. And yeah, and I'm so committed to, if I make an obligation to something, like it's really hard for me to bail out. So if I had a schedule with somebody, like, and I was like supposed to be there at 3:00, like I didn't cancel anything. I just was like, I'm just gonna go do this and see where this takes me. And I posted those photos, and then actually Lenore helped me and got her neighbors, and I went into her neighborhood like the next day or the day after, and I posted those. And then after those first 8 photos, all these people started reaching out, wanting their photograph taken. So it was it had its own momentum right from the beginning. It just really, I mean, a lot of my work is thinking about how humans connect, and within that, like I think the connection is so important.
For Pitt MFA graduate Hannah Eko, writing has always provided a sense of clarity and connection. Both proved to be increasingly important as the world navigated new crises.
First of all, we're social beings who want to connect to each other. That's how we live. And then our nervous systems also are constantly trying to regulate with the nervous systems around us. And so you can imagine in a time of crisis, that can be very, very overwhelming and intense. So being able to like self-regulate is extremely important, and being able to, but also to say like, and not shut down or shut off, right? It's a very fine balance. So for me, I guess like right now, that is something that I'm constantly like bringing into my writing practice as well, and my creative process, to be like, okay, I am connected to the world. I am very much a social being. I am sensitive. I am seeing that there are these awakenings and these flare-ups that are going on in the world. And also, I am distinctly Hannah Olabosibe Shokoya Eko. Like this is also me. And by me connecting to all that is me, with my lineage, with my art, with my family, like that is also me connecting to the world, right?
Pitt undergrad Craig Hayes found community by posting his writing on Instagram. It was a newly public venue for him, and the events of this summer led him to a recognition of his own creative responsibility.
This might be because I'm not like a super public person. So I'm usually, I don't know, I'm kind of a lone wolf. But I'm public when I need to be, and social when I need to be. But I think art has always, to me, it's always kind of been that way. It's highly collaborative, but at the same time, or many times you find like you do your work, and then at some time you come together in a group, and you're like, oh, like this is stuff I've done, but during the process, a lot of times it's by yourself. So I think sharing on Instagram and that's been kind of a way for me to stay connected, and having people to respond to like what I write. I'll speak mainly to my poetry. I think when I started off, I think I was just trying to write. I was just trying to put a piece together. It was really about just writing what I thought, what I experienced, what things I felt strongly about. But I guess mainly at that time it was writing about I don't know, classes I didn't like, or news, or people that I people that I didn't like. But now, especially now, especially during this, while everyone's been quarantined and everything has been just happening, I've realized that as an artist, like we have, like there's this need to write, there's this need to like communicate with the world, but there's also this need to like speak. What is it? James Baldwin said in an interview, he said that artists have the responsibility to do what they need to do. And for me, I have to, all these things happening, like I have to put it out. I have to write from my perspective and tell people this is what I'm thinking. These are things that like I'm dealing with, people that look like me are dealing with. So I don't know, there's like this burden that like, if I call myself an artist and a writer, and I'm not writing to challenge people and to like bring people inspiration in life, like I don't know, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not taking my gift and my talent. I'm taking it for granted. And so during this time, I've just been way more intentional about speaking on the current issues. There's so much like death, not only like physical, but just emotional. Like there's so much just death happening, and people need life. People need to know that you're not like, hey, you're not the only one going through these things. And also, hey, like this is hard. It's okay to say that, but it will get better. Like I can't just put out anything, but there has to be some purpose in it, you know.
For Tahirah Walker, a former manager at Pitt Center for Teaching and Learning, she too found that this new environment we find ourselves in has made her more intentional in her creative work.
I think that I used to be like, if I'm going to write a poem, it would be like, I'd take my phone and just kind of write it in one of those notes, like real quick capture it because I thought of it. Whereas now I am more likely to just be like, nope, I need like half an hour to sit with this. And, I actually do things like editing. My gosh, yeah, no, it's a luxury. I also think that I got to a point where I felt like I don't know what the next week or months are going to bring. And so I wasn't as worried about misuse of resources.
Community is at the center of Tahirah's pedagogical and creative efforts. Both the coronavirus and this summer's social justice protests had a profound impact on how she understands those efforts now.
Oh, yeah, that's, it's been, sort of like a tender subject, especially because in my household, there are so many social justice issues that we are passionate about. Like we don't have any shortage of, people here who are like that part, So, like I have one person who is super interested in doing work that supports the rights of trans women. For people who don't know, trans women of color are most likely to be attacked in our society and killed for being who they are. So I have one person who's just like, we got to do something about that. How are we going to work on that? And then we've been affected by police brutality here in a way that can be really difficult for us to navigate. So Antoine Rose, the second, was a schoolmate of my daughter's. Last week, so last week it was Juneteenth, and it was also the anniversary of the day that he was murdered. And it's also a pandemic still, and I was like, what are we gonna do? And I ended up going with them to a balloon release, which, I was also like, I don't think we're supposed to let the balloons go anymore. I think we don't, I'm the nerdy person out there who's like, oh, eek, I don't know if this is good, So all this stuff converges on me, and I'm like, oh, but put your mask on, and no, don't touch that water bottle, and it's like, how do you navigate a need for community and a need for justice while you're also really concerned about things on other levels? And I think it's like, that's the creativity question kind of writ large, right? Like, it's a balance. You got to know when you put too much red in that thing. Like, I might want to write a poem, and I might want every other word to be the F-bomb, because that's how I feel. And yet I kind of have to think, like, but does that invite people to my work? Does it allow for the kind of, invitation is the best way I can think of it. And you got to make those decisions. So I think in terms of my commitment to community, it's been kind of hard not to be able to just get out there, but at the same time, I think that I am trying to find ways to do that safely at this point. And it's every single option requires a bunch of things being weighed.
That's one of the central questions of creative making, of all of our attempts to connect and communicate, isn't it? How much red do you put in the thing? How do you weigh and measure all the options for expressing yourself? Our guests this week have illuminated some of the possibilities that grew from an especially dark time. Next week on Processing, we follow the light they shed to explore ideas of hope and renewal. We hope you'll join us. Processing is a production of the Center for Creativity at the University of Pittsburgh. The team includes Jasmine Green, Mike Campbell, Nancy Kirkwood, Kit Ayars, Erik Schuckers, Chad Brown, and me, Shannon Fink. For more information, visit us online at creative.pitt.edu. Music in this episode is by Blue Dot Sessions. Thanks for listening.